Some contracts you don't sign because you want to. You sign because there's nothing else left to choose. And sometimes, the very piece of paper that feels like salvation turns out to be the opening line of another kind of storm. That night, Manhattan drowned in rain. Drops hammered the windows of the 30th floor, as if trying to tear the city away from its own borrowed peace. Below, headlights smeared across flooded streets, melting into long silver and gold streaks across the dark. I sat there, in a polished law office, clutching a coat I'd bought second-hand for almost nothing. Inside my purse, the eviction notice was still folded. Wrinkled. Cold. Just like the rest of my life that night. My bank account held $42.17. My mother was lying in a private recovery center up in Connecticut. Every coming month was the same unanswered question, whether she'd be allowed to stay there, or quietly transferred somewhere worse, somewhere colder, somewhere with too many beds and too few people who cared. In front of me, a thick stack of papers waited. The lawyer pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose. His voice came out careful, almost cautious. "Miss Bennett, have you read the terms thoroughly?" I swallowed hard. 6 months. Temporary legal guardianship support. Full residential relocation. An ironclad non-disclosure clause. And at the bottom of the page, a number. $10 million. $10 million, to play the role of a mother to a child I had never met. It sounded insane. It sounded dangerous. It was probably illegal in at least 3 states. But it also meant my mother could keep living. Keep receiving treatment. Keep being safe. "Why me?" I asked, my throat dry. The lawyer hesitated. "Our client requested someone with a medical background, and no public controversies." I gave a small, bitter laugh. "You're talking about me like I'm a used car." He didn't react. He just repeated, in the same flat voice, "Our client values privacy." Of course he did. Men rich enough to offer $10 million to a stranger always had something to hide. Thunder rolled outside the window. The lights flickered once. And then the office door opened. The room shifted. That was the only way I could describe it. A second earlier, this had been an ordinary law office. A second later, every molecule of oxygen seemed to drift toward the man stepping inside. Adrien Moretti didn't need to walk loudly. He simply didn't. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Wrapped in a long black coat still wet with rain. Dark hair swept back. Gray-blue eyes that caught the light like silver. He wasn't handsome the way movie stars are handsome. He was something worse. He was the kind of man who made other people instinctively take a step back, without understanding why. 2 men in black suits trailed behind him, silent as statues by the door. His gaze landed on me. I suddenly noticed every flaw on myself. The dried coffee stain on my sleeve. The cheap boots leaving watermarks on imported marble. "Claire Bennett," he said. His voice was steady. Smooth. Dangerous in the same way still water is dangerous. 26. Pediatric nurse. Volunteers twice a month in Queens. My fingers tightened. "You looked into me?" "I look into anyone connected to my family." Family. It was a strange word, coming from a man like him. Adrien stepped closer to the table, slipping one hand into his coat pocket. "Before you sign, read page 7 carefully." The lawyer's eyes dropped instantly. That should have been my warning. My hand trembled as I flipped through the pages. The first 6 were ordinary. Financial terms, security clauses, confidentiality language. Standard. Then page 7. A line had been added in slightly darker ink near the bottom. "For the duration of this agreement, Miss Claire Bennett may not pursue any romantic, emotional, or marital involvement with another man, while remaining under the protection of Adrien Moretti." I blinked once. Then again. "What the hell is this?" Adrien watched me. Silent. Rain slammed harder against the glass behind him. "A rule," he said. "You're serious?" "I never joke about protection." For the first time, I really looked at him. And in that exact moment, I understood. This wasn't a business arrangement anymore. This was the beginning of something far more dangerous. I should have stood up and walked out the second he called it protection instead of control. But men like Adrien Moretti don't build entire worlds around themselves without learning how to make impossible things sound reasonable. The fountain pen sat heavy in my hand. My signature appeared at the bottom of page 7, right next to a rule that still made my stomach twist. Adrien watched every stroke. Not smug. Not triumphant. And that was the most unsettling part of all. As if he'd already known I'd sign, from the moment I walked into the building. The lawyer gathered the papers and slipped them into a black leather folder. "Transportation has been arranged, Miss Bennet. Your belongings will be delivered tonight." I frowned. "Tonight?" Adrien answered for him. "You'll be staying at the estate. Starting now." The absolute calm in his voice struck a nerve. "You really enjoy making decisions for other people, don't you?" The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. Not quite a smile. "Only when it's necessary." I stood up, gripping my bag. "I need to go home first." "No." A single word. Soft. Final. Adrien didn't need volume. He spoke like a man long accustomed to being obeyed. "There are security concerns," he continued. "Your apartment is no longer safe. You don't even know where I live." His gray-blue eyes locked onto mine. "Brooklyn. 3rd floor of a walk-up near Atlantic Avenue. Neighbor with a German shepherd that barks every morning at 6:15. I held my breath. He knew. Of course he knew. "You had me followed? I had you protected, before you signed anything." That answer should have made me feel safer. Instead, my heart pounded harder. We rode the private elevator down in total silence. The walls were polished black steel, reflecting two of us standing side by side. Me in worn boots and a coat that still smelled faintly of hospital disinfectant. Him in tailored wool and a cologne hinting at cedar and smoke. We looked like two people who shouldn't exist in the same universe. When the SUV door clicked shut behind me, the sound felt far too final. Manhattan slid past the tinted windows. For 20 minutes, Adrien said nothing. Neither did I. Then his phone buzzed once. He read the message in silence. I saw something change on his face. Not fear. Concern. "What is it?" I asked before I could stop myself. Adrien looked at me for a long moment. "The boy," he said quietly. "He's stopped speaking again. Children can sense dangerous people faster than adults can." I realized that the exact second Leo Moretti looked at me, for the very first time. The estate sat nearly an hour outside Manhattan, hidden behind iron gates and bare November trees. By the time the SUV rolled up the drive, my nerves were stretched to the breaking point. The house didn't look real. Massive white stone walls. Floor-to-ceiling windows glowing soft and gold against the storm. The kind of estate that belonged in architectural magazines, not real life. I stepped out, pulling Adrien's coat tighter around me. In the distance, thunder rolled over the dark hills. 2 more security guards waited at the entrance. No one smiled. No one spoke. Adrien got up beside me, eyes still on his phone. "Has he eaten anything?" a voice answered through the speaker. "No, sir. He's locked himself in the sunroom again." Adrien closed his eyes for 1 second. Just one. But I saw it. Real exhaustion, underneath all that flawless control. "Don't push him," he said. "I'll handle it." The front doors opened before we reached them. Warm air rushed against my skin, carrying cedar and the scent of expensive candles. Inside, the house didn't feel like a home. It felt like a luxury hotel someone had forgotten to fill with people. Marble floors. Enormous chandeliers. Paintings worth more than the building I lived in. But for all its wealth, the place felt strangely quiet. Lonely, almost. A woman in her 60s came down the hallway, silver hair pinned neatly at the back of her neck. Mr. Moretti, he hasn't spoken since this afternoon. Adrien nodded. Thank you, Maria. Her eyes shifted to me, warm and curious. This is Miss Bennet? Claire will be staying with us, Adrien said simply. Staying with us. 3 words. Heavier than they had any right to be. And just then, at the far end of the hallway, something moved. Small. Quick. A little boy stood half hidden behind a doorway. Dark hair. Pale. Skin. Wide green eyes, watching me carefully. Leo. I held my breath. He was smaller than I'd imagined. Maybe 6 years old. Fragile in a way no child should ever look. Adrien's whole posture changed the instant he saw the boy. Softer. Not weak. Just human. Leo, he said gently. The child's eyes didn't go to Adrien. They went to the oversized black coat draped over my shoulders. And then, slowly, carefully, one step at a time, he came closer. Nobody moved. The whole house seemed to hold its breath with him. Hi, sweetheart, I whispered. Leo didn't answer. But he kept walking, until he was only a few feet away. Up close, I could see the dark circles under his eyes. As if he hadn't slept properly in weeks. His tiny fingers twisted nervously into the cuff of his sweater. You don't have to talk, I said softly. I work with kids at the hospital. Some of them prefer quiet over words. That's okay too. Adrien stood beside me, silent. I could feel the intensity of his attention without looking. Leo studied my face a moment longer. And then, he reached out and lightly grabbed the edge of my sleeve. Tiny fingers. Careful. As if he was afraid I might disappear if he held on too tightly. Something tightened in my chest. Claire, Adrien murmured behind me. He doesn't approach strangers. Before I could respond, Leo looked up at me. And in a voice so soft I almost thought I'd imagined it, he whispered one word. Mama. The silence that followed was enormous. I looked up at Adrien. His face had gone completely still. Not cold. Not angry. Worse. As if something, inside him, had just quietly cracked open. The most dangerous thing about Adrien Moretti wasn't his power. It was the way he looked at the people he loved, as if losing them would end the world. No one moved after Leo whispered that word. The rain tapped gently against the enormous windows. A grandfather clock somewhere deeper in the house counted off the seconds, like a heartbeat. Mama. That word echoed through my chest, in a way I couldn't explain. Leo's small fingers still held my sleeve, anxious, careful, as if he believed I'd vanish if he let go too quickly. I slowly knelt in front of him. Hey, sweetheart, I said gently. I think you might be mixing me up with someone else. Leo looked at me with those huge green eyes too old for a 6-year-old. Then his gaze dropped to the floor. His small shoulders tensed. A flicker of shame moved across his face so fast it hurt. Leo, Adrien said. His voice softened in a way I'd never heard before. The boy flinched. Not from fear. From uncertainty. As if he were bracing himself to disappoint someone. Adrien stepped closer and knelt down beside him, in a black suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He looked entirely out of place, a powerful man kneeling on marble, to comfort a frightened child. And somehow, that made him even more dangerous. Look at me, Adrien said. After a moment, Leo did. Adrien rested his hand lightly on the back of the boy's neck. Gentle. Protective. You didn't do anything wrong. Leo's bottom lip trembled. But I know. Adrien glanced at me, then back at the boy. You miss her. The truth settled into my stomach, heavily. Leo wasn't calling me his mother. He was calling me someone he had lost. Someone he desperately wanted back. That realization broke something in me, before I had time to put up a wall. Maria touched my elbow gently from behind. Miss Bennet, perhaps you'd like some tea, while Mr. Moretti settles him? But Leo's grip tightened on my sleeve. Panic flashed in his eyes. No. Louder this time. Immediate. Frightened. Adrien saw it too. I caught the exact second concern darkened his expression. It's all right, Adrien told the boy calmly. Claire isn't going anywhere. Something about hearing my name in that low, steady voice made my pulse stumble. Leo looked at me a moment longer, then slowly loosened his grip. Okay, he whispered. Adrien stood, eyes still on the boy even as he spoke to Maria. Prepare the East Suite for Claire. Already done, sir? Of course it was. In this house, nothing was accidental. A few minutes later I followed them upstairs through hallways lined with thick rugs, past paintings that watched me, like silent ghosts. The estate was beautiful in the same cold way museums are beautiful. Everything perfect. Everything. Untouched. My room alone was bigger than my whole apartment in Brooklyn. Stone fireplace. Cream-colored furniture. Fresh flowers near the window. A bathroom that looked like a luxury spa. I stood frozen in the doorway. Your belongings arrived 20 minutes ago, Maria said. Mr. Moretti doesn't care for delays. Clearly. Maria smiled, with something dangerously close to pity. You know, dear, that man had the kitchen lighting completely replaced once, because Leo said the lights were too bright. That explained nothing. And somehow, everything. Downstairs, the tension drifted through the hallways, like smoke after a fire. The staff avoided eye contact. Guards whispered near the exits. I found Leo in the sunroom. Alone. Wrapped in a blanket. Colored pencils scattered around him, untouched. He looked up the moment I walked in. Good morning, I said softly. Leo hesitated, and gave a small nod. Better than silence. I sat cross-legged on the floor next to him and picked up a pencil. You know, I whispered. When I was little, I used to draw too, every time I got scared. His green eyes turned to me, curious. My mom got sick when I was 13. After that, hospitals became normal. Machines. White walls. Doctors using words too big for me. Leo watched my hand move across the paper. Sometimes, when everything feels too heavy, talking starts to feel impossible. His tiny fingers tightened around the blanket for a moment. Then slowly, he reached for a blue pencil. The relief that hit me was so quick it almost hurt. We drew in silence for nearly 20 minutes. Until another voice spoke gently behind us. He's never done this with anyone else. I looked up. Adrien stood in the doorway. A charcoal suit dark as the storm outside. His eyes were on Leo alone. Not on me. On Leo, smiling faintly for the first time since I'd arrived. That sight changed something on Adrien's face. Softened him, in a way he probably resented. Leo noticed him standing there, and instantly looked back down. The fragile smile disappeared. Adrien saw it too. Pain moved across his face so fast most people would have missed it. I didn't. He's trying, I told Adrien quietly. Adrien nodded. Once. Then stepped into the room. Someone is coming to the estate this afternoon. The calm in his voice made my stomach knot. Who? Family attorney. A psychologist. Members of the trust. His jaw tightened. They want to assess whether Leo is emotionally stable enough to remain in my care. I stared at him. He just lost his father. And people with money rarely allow grief to interfere with business. Every word was edged with bitterness. Leo's fingers suddenly clutched my sleeve under the blanket. Small. Trembling. Adrien noticed instantly. He's afraid they'll take him away, he said quietly. Can they? Adrien looked directly at me. Something cold settled behind his eyes. No. A single word. Carrying absolute certainty. Not hope. A promise. The silence settled. My eyes drifted to the leather folder under Adrien's arm. A photograph was slipping out partway. I held my breath. In the photo, Adrien stood beside another man at a lake house somewhere, years ago. Probably Matteo. But that wasn't what shocked me. It was the woman standing between them. Blonde hair. Blue eyes. Soft features. She looked almost exactly like me. Sometimes the truth doesn't arrive like a gunshot. Sometimes it arrives like a photograph quietly slipping from someone's hand. I couldn't look away from the woman in the picture. Blonde hair spilling over one shoulder. Blue eyes, so much like mine. Even her smile carried the same shy softness that people always said I had. The room tilted under my feet. Adrien noticed instantly. His hand reached for the photo on instinct, but it was already too late. I'd seen her. Who is she? Leo looked between us, confused. Adrien's jaw clenched. Her name was Evelyn. Was. My stomach dropped. Dead. Of course she was. Women in houses like this always seem to become ghosts in the end. She was Matteo's wife. Adrien continued carefully. Leo's mother. The boy beside me lowered his head at the word mother. I swallowed hard. You hired me because I look like her. Adrien's silence answered for him. Something hot and humiliated twisted in my chest. I stood up too suddenly. Oh my God! Leo startled beside me. Regret hit immediately. So did anger. This whole thing wasn't about a contract, I whispered. You wanted a replacement. Adrien's expression darkened. No. Then what am I doing here? Because from where I'm standing, this doesn't look like helping a child. It looks like emotional manipulation. Leo curled deeper into the blanket. Adrien noticed. Maria, he said, his eyes never leaving mine. Take Leo to the kitchen. Maria appeared almost instantly. Leo hesitated before going. His small fingers brushed my wrist as he walked past. The moment he was gone, the whole room shifted. The warmth disappeared. Adrien stepped closer. Slowly. Controlled. Dangerous in that same eerily quiet way only he could manage. You think I brought you here because of your face? Didn't you? The rain flashed silver against the windows behind him. I brought you here because Leo spoke to you after nearly a year of silence. His voice stayed low. Steady. Do you understand what that means? He thought I was someone else. No. Adrien stepped closer. He knew exactly who you were. I frowned. Adrien exhaled and turned toward the storm outside. Evelyn made people feel safe. Even in bad situations. Especially in bad situations. Something shifted in his voice when he said her name. Not infatuation. Grief. The kind a person could drown in. Leo hasn't looked at anyone the way he looks at you since she died. The anger in me softened. You should have told me. From the beginning. Would you have signed if I had? No. The truth sat between us. Painful. Adrien knew it. That doesn't make the lie acceptable. I didn't lie. His gray-blue eyes locked back on mine. I omitted details. Because Leo needed help more than I needed your honesty. That brutal frankness unsettled me more than excuses would have. Powerful men usually lie easily. Adrien didn't. He simply decided who deserved which truths. You can't control everything, forever. Adrien looked at me a long moment. Watch me. The words should have sounded arrogant. Instead, they sounded exhausted. Like a man trying to hold up a collapsing world, with bare hands. Suddenly, voices echoed from deep inside the estate. Sharp. Urgent. The softness left Adrien's face so fast, it startled me. A guard appeared. Sir, the trustees have arrived early. Adrien's gaze froze the entire room. Take Claire upstairs. I can stay. Adrien looked at me. Intense. Unreadable. Not for this meeting. Why? Because people in this family smile right before they try to destroy something. Wealthy families don't argue like ordinary people. They smile, while they tear each other apart. I was supposed to stay upstairs, the way Adrien had asked. Instead, 20 minutes later, I was crouched halfway down the staircase, listening to voices carrying through the stone halls. The meeting had started inside the West Wing library. Doors closed. But anger always travels farther than people think. That boy needs stability, an older man snapped. Not isolation, inside a mausoleum like this. He needs protection, Adrien answered. Calm. Colder than any Ray's voice. I pressed against the railing. 4 people sat around the long table beneath warm golden lights. 2 men in suits. A woman with silver jewelry and sharp blue eyes. And Adrien, standing beside the fireplace, as if the storm itself had walked into the room, wearing black wool and silence. Leo was curled up on the leather sofa near the window, clutching a drawing to his chest. He was too small for a conversation like this. The board believes a boarding academy in Switzerland would be a better fit, the older man went on. Leo flinched at the word Switzerland. My chest tightened. Adrien saw it too. The board is confusing financial authority with parental authority. The woman crossed her arms. You're not his father. Silence. Adrien's jaw tightened. No, he said softly. I'm the only person he has left. One of the trustees lowered his voice. There are also concerns about your recent arrangement. Adrien's eyes sharpened. Explain. The woman's gaze drifted toward the staircase. Toward me. I froze. The nurse, she said coldly. Replacing a child's mother with a woman who resembles her is emotionally reckless. Heat flooded my face. Adrien's expression darkened. Careful. The warning packed into that single word silenced the entire room. Claire Bennett is here because Leo trusts her. That is the beginning and end of your concern. The woman gave a small, humorless laugh. Or maybe she reminds you too much of Evelyn. Wrong move. I knew it immediately. Adrien stepped away from the fireplace. Slow. Precise. More terrifying than any anger would have been. You will not speak about my brother's wife again. No one answered. And then Leo spoke. Small. Fragile. Please don't make me leave. Every head turned toward him. I don't want Switzerland. A small piece of my heart broke. Adrien crossed the room and knelt by the sofa, not caring about the expensive suit or polished shoes. You're not leaving this house, he said quietly. I promise you. What if they make you? Adrien rested his hand lightly on the back of Leo's neck. No one makes me do anything. That certainty settled into the boy like a sedative. I watched it happen. Leo's shoulders loosened. The silver-haired woman kept watching Adrien. You're getting emotional. Adrien slowly looked up. Good. That one word silenced the room. Including me. Adrien stood. This meeting is over. Adrien, I said, it's over. No one argued. One by one, they gathered their papers and left the library, under the weight of Adrien's silence. As she walked past me on the stairs, the silver-haired woman paused. She whispered, just low enough for me to hear. Be careful, Miss Bennett. Her cold blue eyes flicked toward Adrien. Men who love, as deeply as he does, rarely survive it. People think love begins with grand confessions. They're wrong. Sometimes it begins the moment someone chooses to stay, when leaving would be so much easier. 3 days passed after the trustees left the estate. 3 quiet, rainy days, in which the tension in the house slowly reshaped itself into something gentler. Leo started talking more each morning. Short sentences. Careful ones. He asked me whether pancakes were better with blueberries or chocolate chips. He asked if hospitals really smelled as bad as cartoons said. He asked whether dogs could tell when people cried. And every time the boy laughed, Adrien looked at him, like a man who'd just been given oxygen after nearly drowning. I started noticing everything after that. The way Adrien paused outside the sunroom, before entering, so he wouldn't interrupt the boy's smile. The way he quietly checked whether Leo had finished dinner. The way his whole body relaxed whenever the boy slipped into peaceful sleep. Dangerous men aren't supposed to love that gently. That was the problem. On the fourth night, the storm finally broke. Moonlight spilled silver across the estate, for the first time since I'd arrived. I stood alone on the terrace, wrapped in a sweater. The November air wound itself around me gently. Below, fountains whispered through dark gardens. For the first time, the place almost felt peaceful. "Can't sleep either?" Adrien's voice came from behind me. I turned. He had shed the suit jacket. Just the black shirt now, sleeves rolled to the elbows. Tired, but less haunted than before. "Hospital shifts killed my sleep schedule years ago." Adrien came to stand beside me at the railing. The silence settled comfortably. Manhattan glittered far off across the hills. "Leo smiled today. You noticed?" "I notice everything about him." The honesty in that sentence warmed something in my chest that I probably should have guarded more carefully. I glanced over. "You love him, like he's your own son." His jaw tensed. "He's my responsibility." "That isn't what I just said." His gray-blue eyes turned to me slowly. Intense enough that my pulse skipped. "In my world, love and responsibility are the same thing." The sentence sat between us. Dangerous. And honest. I looked away first. "That sounds exhausting." Adrien let out a quiet sound. Almost a laugh. "It is." The silence returned. Softer this time. Then Adrien pulled something from his pocket and set it on the terrace table. The contract. Page 7, visible in the moonlight. My stomach tightened. "You were right." "About what?" "About me, trying to control this situation before it could hurt Leo." His voice was steady. But something fragile lived beneath it now. "I thought, if I controlled every variable, nothing else could be taken from this family." That raw truth caught me off guard. Adrien looked down at the contract. "Then you walked into this house and reminded the boy how to smile again." My chest ached. "Adrien." He shook his head. "You should never have been pulled into this mess." In the moonlight, I noticed silver threads in his dark hair. Stress. Sleepless nights. Grief quietly aging him, where no one could see. "But I'm here now," I whispered. Adrien turned to face me. No walls. No coldness. Just exhaustion, and something dangerously close to hope. He picked up the contract and tore it in half. The sound vanished into the night. "No more rules." I watched the torn pages flutter in the breeze. "So what happens now?" His face softened in a way that almost hurt to look at. "Now you choose whether this family becomes yours. By your own will." Before I could answer, the terrace door slid open. Leo stood there, rubbing his eyes. A stuffed dinosaur tucked under one arm. His eyes found me at once. "Claire?" he whispered. "I had a bad dream." I dropped to my knees. Leo wrapped his arms tight around my neck. Over his shoulder, I looked up at Adrien standing under the moon. And for the first time since I'd met him, the terrifying man who could silence entire rooms with a glance looked at me as if he were afraid of losing something precious. There are contracts that bind people with money. And there are bindings that need no signature. No clauses. No lawyers. Just a child calling you Mama on a rainy night. Just a man who once seemed incapable of love, looking at you as if you were the last thing standing between him and total collapse. And sometimes, fate doesn't arrive with a clap of thunder. Sometimes it arrives as a contract, torn in half, under the moon,